Welcome to this episode of 427 Motorsports. Now, if you're like me, you probably spend a lot of your time on the internet looking at these crazy builds all around the world, from 1,000 horsepower Supras to crazy Skylines and all sorts. Now, these guys will go crazily in depth telling you about their engine, their build, what they've done to it, their forged pistons and all sorts. And usually these builds tend to be in places like, say, America or California or whatever. I know that's a generalization, but you get the drift. However, if you're like me and you live in a country such as Ireland here, where the weather isn't always the greatest to your cars, there's another thing that you really need to consider. As well as worrying about what you're going to do to your engine, you also really need to consider something that a lot of people don't really like to think about until it's too late. And that's, is my car actually worth putting all this work into? Unfortunately, sometimes it's very hard to tell this until you've already started to strip it down, and by then you might have already bought your engine and all sorts. So on this video I'm going to have a look at mine, which I have already stripped down and put onto a spit, and I'm going to show you how bad it is and, well, if I were you, whether I would bother continuing or not. So let's head inside the shed and have a look. Now, if you need a refresher into what we've done so far, you can check out part 1 of this video where I go in depth about stripping down the car for this process. But what you may notice in part 1 is that I started to strip down the car there. And now it's not there anymore. Well, long story short, basically we put the Golf onto the spit, which then broke, and it ruptured the rings of the spit. Now this meant that mass panic ensued and we had to get the car off the spit before it completely collapsed, which would have meant it landing on its roof and probably game over. I'd have been looking for a new shell, never mind a new engine. So we got it onto some tires as a support and kept it on the back part of the spit because the back part was fine. And then we went and made a new, I don't really know what the term is for it, but the thing that the pin goes into to help rotate the car. We had to make a new one of those out of thicker grade steel and drill the holes in it and etc, and stuck it on. Then I had to get my friends to come over and give me a hand, so shout out to Connor, Ryan, Shay, and of course my big brother Dave. Big thanks to all of you guys for helping us out in a mass panic. Got everybody to help me lift it into the shed because it's just a better place to work, and we needed to clear the shed out anyway. So if you're wondering why the car is no longer here, there's your answer. So let's get into the shed. So now we are here, and as you can see, the Golf is up on its side. Now the brunt of the work we're going to have to do here is underneath, hence having it on its side, but we will flip it back over onto the level and you can see what's going on up there too. But what we've done first of all basically is the monotonous process of chiseling, wire brushing and polydisking the whole underside of the car just to see what's left. Now the factory under seal has chipped off in places, which means it's probably dried out and water has got in behind it and just rotted it from underneath. Which means then that we have to chip it all away and see what's left behind the underseal. And this has also been covered with many years of the black underseal you put over the top to try and hide all of these imperfections when you take it in for a test or a state inspection as they call it in America. And it also means that we discover lots of fiberglass and fillers and things that shouldn't be there. Now a lot of people kind of just like to live in denial and think about the fun side of working on a project, which is trying to make your engine fit, making it go fast, make it sound good, but none of that means anything if your car is disintegrating from inside out. I know it's crazy to think about, but if you're going for a big power build or high torque or whatever it is you're trying to do, if your body isn't fit to take it, you're just going to rip it in two. Not only that, there's nothing worse than putting all of this work into making it go fast and look cool and have it be an absolute heap. So I strongly advise you do put the time in to underneath it. I mean, there is no better way to do it than a spit, but of course you can do it in your driveway, or you can do it on a pit or on a lift or whatever. But for me personally, working at eye level on a spit, you can't beat it. So I'll take you through some of the worst parts, some of the surprisingly best parts, and how I'm going to go forward with this. Excuse the camera quality, I have to put on a wide angle lens to fit this whole thing in because there's a lot of other stuff in the shed. The brunt really of your repair work is going to be in this, the floor. Now as you can see, the chassis leg runs along this. This is where you would jack your car up. This is the strong part, this is not. And what you can see here is that this has been jacked up on this when it really shouldn't have, or it's been forgotten about that it's lowered and has hit something and has actually ruptured the floor. And as you can see here, it's actually rotted underneath the chassis leg. Now I've stripped all of this back and etch primed it to try and protect it, but I found that many holes and things, it's actually not worth saving. So I've went ahead and bought a set of floor panels. I'm definitely going to replace this side. I'm still yet to do the lower, technically the passenger side. I'm still yet to do the passenger side fully and find out exactly what it needs, but I know for a fact, for the amount of work it's going to take, it was easier to just buy a panel. Now this is where we are blessed with doing this on a Volkswagen, because classic Volkswagens, there is nothing that you can't get for them. If you're working on something a bit more obscure, you genuinely might struggle to find some parts or repair panels or whatever, and you might have to do a lot more fabricating, but if you're a Volkswagen guy, you lucked out. Surprisingly enough, things like the jacking points, which in any car I've never trusted, to be quite honest. I would always jack on the chassis leg just to be careful, but they are perfect on this on both sides. Like there's no rust at all, so I'm very happy with that. The rust, again, this was done outside before the spit broke. So as you can see, even though it was etch primed and protected, it's already started to rust again, which is never a good sign. So I'm just going to be cutting this all out and putting in a new floor. Now of course, yes, you have this bad part of the chassis leg here, but there's so many tiny little holes and cuts. And what you're also going to find as you go along, which I found here, is previous repairs that have been badly done to get it through a test. For example, a bit of rot that's been cut out and fiberglass put in this place. Now yes, I get the argument, some cars are entirely made from fiberglass and it's strong enough for them. Fair enough, and to get it out and chisel it out was actually an absolute nightmare to do because it is so strong, but could you really live with yourself just fiberglassing your floor that you're going to put all of this time and effort into? Cut it out, put some metal in. That should be a slogan, cut it out. So along here, this would be your transmission tunnel in something rear-wheel drive, I guess, but in a Golf, this is an exhaust tunnel really, and as you can see, I didn't quite clean this properly when I was last working on it. But this is where your gear selector comes in. Now, for this swap, we're putting in the gear selector from the Mark III. If somehow I get some money, or if somebody wants to donate one, and we wind up putting in a Mark IV shifter, which is actually an upgrade, we'll have to drill a couple holes in here and maybe grind some stuff out to make it fit, but that's minor whenever you're at this angle. That might be a pain underneath the car, but when you're staring right at it, now is the perfect time to try and make that fit. Same goes for any real modifications that involve cutting or grinding under the car. This stage, when you have it all stripped, is the time to do it, and you can mock it all up perfectly with nothing in your way. Now, thankfully, I lucked out in that my sills are actually very, very, very good. There's a wee bit here, but that's actually rot on the inner skin and has kind of transferred onto the outer, but this whole section seems to be perfect. For whatever reason, this entire driver's side has just really rotted away. The passenger side here, now I've started into it, and from what I can see, this is actually really, really good. Now I haven't polyed this yet. All I have done here is take off the black underseal that somebody has put on over the years. I won't deny it, some of it was me, yes. For the most part, there is no rot whatsoever. Actually, I was about to say there's a pinhole there, but no, that's actually meant to be there. There's this part here which has been cut out and fiberglass put over it. But apart from that, on this wee bit here, it seems to be okay. Now I've got most of it cleaned, not fully, and I haven't polydisced it to get rid of the rust. But I'll be getting rid of the rust and putting rust treatment stuff, which I have here. This stuff right here. This has been lying in our shed for years and it still works. You pour it on and when it's working, it turns blue. Go figure. And then you just give it a clean with a wire brush afterwards and away you go. So I've been doing that. I haven't done it on this because I didn't know we had it at the time, but for the whole rest of it, I have been. So moving further back, we actually have a mix of very good, surprisingly good, bad, and oh Jesus Christ, scrap that thing. Thankfully there's not very much oh Jesus Christ, scrap that thing, because I do want to save this, so yeah. Now up here straight away, this is the rear chassis leg, and the scary part about this, that's where the spit's actually mounted to. It doesn't look good, so I'm leaving that until I can take it off the spit, and then I'm going to tackle that part afterwards just to be safe, because I don't want to start hacking at that and then that bracket decides it doesn't want to be one with the car anymore and we have a disaster on our hands. But surprisingly, well, actually no, not surprisingly, it's driver's side and the whole driver's side seems to be crap, so fair enough. But surprisingly enough, the passenger side is actually perfect the whole way down the chassis leg, right up to here. Now it's starting to go a wee bit in there. I haven't fully tore into that part yet, but it's surprisingly good looking so far, so hey ho. This beautiful mess here, I've known about this for a while from the inside because you could actually see it in the spare wheel well, but underneath it wasn't this bad until I started to take off the fuel tank strap, and the fuel tank strap took most of this with it, so that's not good. But the rest of the brackets that the fuel tank strap goes to are all perfect, so it's minor really, and I think a lot of it is actually interchangeable with the Mark III donor car that we have, so I'm kind of praying that the Mark III isn't too bad. Same goes for up here in the inner arch with the fuel tank support bracket. Now it's as bad, it's completely rotted away. When I took the diesel tank out, I could undo one bolt and the other just came with the body. So needless to say, that needs to be sorted. But I'll also be chipping away this entire inner arch. Now, why are you going back to bare metal, you may be asking? Well, my plan is I'm going back to bare metal with the entire car. Everything you see that has this etch primer on it has been back to perfect bare metal with no rust. Apart from that, but that screws out, so I don't really care. But yes, every part that's grey has been etch primed and protected. Now I'm doing 2 coats. I am doing one coat with this U-Pol acid etch primer. It's a 1K, which means you don't have to mix it with anything, it goes straight on. Now you are meant to spray this, which I wasn't told until I'd already started to brush paint it, which is why it looks like crap. But this is the base coat, and by brush painting it, I am putting it on properly thick, because realistically, with the finishing thing that I'm putting over the top of this, any brush strokes and runs you won't see. So it doesn't really matter. For me, I'm not looking show standard, I am looking durability. I want this thing to last another 40 years, so I don't care how it looks, I just want it to last. So I'm doing one coat with this acid etch primer. And then on top of that, as you can see with the different shade of grey here, I am going to be putting our local Motor Factors Auto Bits. They're not sponsoring me or anything, but I use their stuff all of the time. And personally, their spray cans are probably the best I've ever used. And I don't mind saying that because realistically, most of the people who watch this are actually based far in the south of Ireland or even the UK or worldwide. And this is a Motor Factors in my local town of Armagh, so you know, I'm not gaining anything by telling you guys about them, but I'm just telling you that's what I'm using. Shout out to them. And they're not even giving me any free stuff. So it's genuinely just, I like their stuff. That's why I'm telling you about it. So I'll be putting a coat of that over all of this as an extra layer of etch primer, but it's also a regular primer too. It works for both because most etch primers you then still have to put something over it because I think it's porous, or more porous anyway, but it will start to rust if you don't put something else on it. I think either it'll start to rust or the paint won't take to it properly like it will with regular primer, so just be aware of that. So I'm covering the whole lot with that other coat of primer, and then I'm putting on a proper underseal, kind of like the factory one, except this will be nice and fresh and be much more durable stuff, because you also have to think the underseal that's on this is perhaps 40 years old minimum, so you know, it's probably due to be replaced. Now to be fair, a lot of it is still doing its job, which is why there's so much good metal on this, but for my own peace of mind and so it'll look good, I'm recoating the whole underside. So this is the stuff I'll be using. It's basically Raptor, it's the same stuff, it's a bit cheaper. I don't have the budget in this build for using proper named brand stuff, so hey ho, but this is every bit as good, uses all of the same ingredients and is a lot cheaper. Now this is the tintable one, and you mix the hardener in, so this is how much, 500 milliliters? 600 milliliters, and then this is 200 milliliters, which equals 800 milliliters if you're good at your maths. But what the thing is with this one is, this is either white or clear, I'm not sure, but either way, you mix your own color in with this, which then makes the underside the same as this stuff, the same factory color, which makes the whole underside just look that little bit nicer. So all you do is plonk this into here because there's enough space for it, throw a bit of your color in to get it to look how you want, and then you put your shoots gun, I believe it's called, into this, connect it to your line, spray it, away you go. For the record, this. Now this gives it a textured finish, again, like the factory, so it will look pretty much brand new underneath once it's all done. But because this has that textured finish, any runs and imperfections and slight gaps in your welds, well, you shouldn't have gaps in your welds anyway, but if you do have gaps in your welds, this will fill that in and it'll look perfect. Now, also like the Raptor stuff, you can use this on pretty much anything, and I'm near certain that it's good for using in heat as well. In heat? Yeah, don't use it if you're horny. But anyway, yes, it comes in a black one as well. Now I got the black one too. Because of that, I plan on using it on the likes of my rear beam, my subframe, any major components, to be honest, to make them last a little bit longer and give them an extra layer of protection. You can use thinner in this like you would when you're painting a car, and it will reduce the texture finish that you get and will make it a bit smoother. So it kind of looks like you've powder coated it without the effort of going and getting it powder coated. So on the subframe and the rear beam, etc., I'll be doing the same process with this, wire brushing it, polydisking it, whatever, putting the etch primer on, 2 coats, and then this stuff over the top just to make sure it's protected. And then hopefully I shouldn't have to touch this thing for a very long time, and all of this effort I'm putting into the swap will last me as long as possible. Still with me? Good. Now, a lot of people are probably looking at all of this work that this needs and saying, why the hell would you bother with a 4-door, base spec, diesel Golf? And the thing is, everybody's project is unique to them. Now, this one is very unique to me because this is, well, it's one of my 6 that I plan to never get rid of. This took me to university all the time. It took me to work. It's done everything for me. It's basically a part of the family at this point. So to me, it's worth saving this. But if you're just starting out on a build and it's a car that you're buying, check it as much as you possibly can, because it's only when you start to strip it this much that you can see in behind everything and see just how bad it actually is. Now, if you're watching this in California or whatever, then you don't have to worry, because you know the world likes you and you've got nice climate and your cars don't rust. So that's the gist of what it's like underneath. And thankfully up top's not too bad, but we'll turn it over and I'll show you around. So with the car flipped back over, you can see it's very much the same story inside as it was underneath. And to be honest, I kind of just give up on cleaning a lot of the inside of it because it was so bad on this side. The other side I haven't quite finished cleaning yet, but looking at underneath, it is worth trying to clean it up again. So I'll see what it comes out like, but who knows really at this point. There's not really a lot more to show you in here other than the fact that it's not good, really. Thankfully though, the front end is very, very good. So as you can see, the engine bay is actually in very good shape, as are the inner wings and the bulkhead. Now, I have already put paint on it, to be honest. I will not lie and say, oh, it was this good. I have already repainted the engine bay, and I will probably put a coat of lacquer on it just to give it an extra bit of protection. But yeah, our chassis legs and everything are perfect. The battery tray, which is normally rotten on these, is perfect. Now, one problem is, stereotypical of a Mark II Golf, is that the scuttle has started to rust. Now, even though this is an early Mark II Golf, which means the wipers are on the wrong way around for a right-hand drive car, normally they're a bit more solid, but this instance, unfortunately, they are not, and that really hurt. I just hit my arm off a hinge. Nice. Yeah, so I'm going to be cutting the windscreen out, and by cutting, I mean cutting the seal and lifting the windscreen out and just replacing the seal, because I've always had leaks on the inside, and I ain't talking about the food, I mean water leaks, and likely that's something to do with the fact that the windscreen scuttle is starting to rust. Usually water runs through the rust hole and into the floor. But up here, for the most part, until we start actually modifying this car, I think can be left alone. I will show a video, of course, next time of taking the windscreen out and stuff like that, and it will probably break, who knows, let's see how it goes. So I hope this video has given you a bit of an idea into what disasters you could find as you start to strip down your project a bit more, and might give you a bit of incentive to look a bit more thoroughly when picking a project car base. Now obviously I need to sort all of this before I can start doing any form of go fast trickery, so needless to say, next week's video on this will probably be an update on the bodywork. I hope to have it all fully cleaned underneath and at least some welding done. Maybe not the entire floor pan, but a good chunk of it done. All being well, sure, I'll hopefully have it actually undersealed by then, but I highly doubt it, to be quite honest. So tune in next week to see just how much work I get done on this. Hopefully it's a lot, who knows, but follow me on Instagram at Tomo Pattison to see quicker updates. Also be sure to check out Connor on Instagram at Hughes Corporation. He does our history videos and some Mercedes videos on the channel, so check him out. Also check out our Instagram at 427 Motorsports, although we don't use it that much. Check out our TikTok at 427 Motorsports. I'm noticing a theme here. It seems to be all 427 Motorsports. And check out our web store, 427motorsports.co.uk/store. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. This series has gotten better reviews than I ever could have imagined. Nothing but positive thumbs up and great feedback from everybody, so it really means a lot. I mean, I have to do this anyway because I need to get the car out of the shed. This isn't just for fun. This is actually kind of a necessity, but it means a lot to see that everybody's actually enjoying it. So thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck.